surgery, you're in an ostomy.
Yeah.
How has life been for you since then?
Amazing.
Right? This is why I call this podcast The Beautiful Bag, because you go through this whole thing and then at the end of the day, you're like, this is so bad.
It isn't so bad. I mean, honestly, colons are overrated. That's what I tell people. I'm just like,
These testimonials are representative of my or our experiences, but the exact results and experience will be unique and individual to each person. The information provided herein is not medical advice and is not intended to substitute for the advice of your personal physician or other healthcare providers. Welcome to The Beautiful Bag. This is your host, LeeAnne Hayden, cancer survivor, and more importantly, ostomy lifer. Each and every week, I'm going to be bringing a special guest or some inspiration for you and a few little stories along the way so that you can learn what life is like for us to be living in an ostomy and why we all think it's a beautiful bag. So listen in and let's get started. Hey everybody, it's LeeAnne Hayden here. This week I have an awesome, amazing, beautiful guest with me. She is my ostomate sister. She is also an artist, and guys, I'm gonna have her do a little plug at the end of this for her website because she is launching some beautiful, beautiful items that you're gonna want to check out. But Joy we met on social media. We met on Instagram, as a matter of fact, and just started communicating on Instagram. And for everybody who's looking for a community, I think that has been the place where I have found the most community. All you got to do is search ostomy, and you're going to find so many people who are out there talking about it, and find your community outside of this podcast here. So we're going to get right into it. So Joy, welcome to the podcast this week.
Thanks. It's lovely to be here. It's my first podcast.
Is it really? Oh, this is awesome. All right. We're going to just have some fun because it's just going to be us girls talking. Nobody else is listening. Love it. Love it. So, why don't we get right into it, girl? So, why don't you tell your story? Like, how did everything start?
Well, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis when I was, I think, just shy of 21. I had been experiencing, I guess, some symptoms of like IBS a few years prior to that, but IBS wasn't really a thing back then. It's like, any kind of gut complaint, the doctors were basically like, we don't know. I mean, first of all, you wouldn't think to talk to anyone about it because who wants to hear that you have really bad gas all the time and loose stools? No one wants to hear that. So you just kind of keep it to yourself, especially as a late teen. And then I experienced, I guess, a great amount of stress leading up to my 21st birthday and started bleeding and went to the doctors, and they did colonoscopy and found that I had pan-ulcerative colitis and didn't know why, didn't know what to do for me. And so, being about 21, there was a lot of moving around and things like that. So I had just graduated from college. I moved up to Alaska and started taking Azicol. At the time, there were very limited medications that you could take as well. So it's basically Azicol or sulfa drugs or steroids. And I did a bunch of research on steroids and found that they weren't very useful, at least the folks that I spoke to. Taking steroids seemed to help the chronic flare-up go away, but then as soon as you wean off the steroids, their flare-ups would come back. And so that's what I had was chronic ulcerative colitis.
So now colitis, right? So it's painful.
Yeah.
Right? It's painful. It's not just something that, it's just a little tiny stomach ache.
Yes. For me, it was more, it's just, I think there was a lot of bloating for me. A lot of, honestly, I mean, I went from being diagnosed to having to go to the bathroom every 45 minutes pretty quickly.
Okay.
And so I was just exhausted. I never got any sleep. And I had what's called a spastic colon. So even if I didn't have to go to the bathroom, I felt like I had to go to the bathroom like constantly, like all the time. So it's not very fun, especially, early 20s, it's like life is just getting good. You're out on your own and, you're strapped to the toilet. It was just not my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine why it wouldn't be. So now you're in Alaska, you're trying a new drug. Take us from there.
I also tried I tried every diet that I could think of. I did raw food, I did macrobiotics. I tried the specific carbohydrate diet, which I actually had some luck with. But I find that gut issues and ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, it's so individual that what works for one person isn't going to work for somebody else. I was on forums and things whenever I had a chance, talking with other folks who would swear by eating white potatoes. And if I ate white potatoes, I would be, crapping blood for a week. So I played around a lot with diet, exercise, sleep, meditation. And I think that all of that really kind of got me more on like my health journey, where I became really interested in foods and I became really interested in cleanses and taking care of myself. And, none of them cured my ulcerative colitis, but, but it at least sparked that interest that I have in health and wellness. And I discovered after about, let's see, so when I was 21, so when I was about 25, I discovered what's called the BCIR, and that's the Barnett Continent Intestinal Reservoir. And that's a pouch that they make out of your small intestine. They make like little Frankenstein balloon on the inside so that you basically cut out the diseased large colon on the rectum and you have an ileostomy, but everything's on the inside, because I really didn't like the idea of having an ostomy bag. And I had that surgery done in 2002 when I was 25. And about 6 months later, I was one of the 25% who experienced all of the problems. I had fistulas, I had chronic intestinal inflammation, and this is where the pain really started for me. I was just so inflamed constantly. And I remember I would sleep underneath my desk on my lunch breaks because I was just so exhausted and I was so tired. And I had like a heating pad with me everywhere. And during that time, I think I was on antibiotics. Like I would be on 500 milligrams 3 times a day of Cipro for 2 weeks, and then I'd be off for 2 weeks. And then I would be on Flagyl 500 milligrams 3 times a day for 2 weeks. And I did that for 2 years straight.
Wow.
And the doctors were like, we don't know how to fix this. And I had fistulas going into my bladder. So I was peeing poop. And then I had a surgery to correct that. And then I think it was the following year I had a fistula going into my vagina. And so I had, I was pooping out of my vagina. It was awesome,
Jeez.
And yeah, it was super good times.
And all in your 20s when you're trying, when you're young and you're like, oh, I'm out of the house. I'm going to be going out drinking and partying. And
oh my gosh, I was on the struggle bus.
Yeah.
I was skinny too. I think during that time, I think I lost like 20 pounds. I was down to like 99 pounds, and I'm 5'5". So that's a little.
That's little.
That's little.
That's a little. That's a little. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just malnourished, and and so I had, I think, 3 surgeries in 2 years. I think maybe 4. The 4th surgery, I think, was my last ostomy surgery. Oh, that's not true. But I went back to this hospital in Florida where these specialists are, and spoke to one of my favorite, grave shift nurses, Peggy. She was awesome. She's from Boston. and was asking her, like, it's like I was the perfect candidate. Why is this happening to me? And she said she was the only one who would be playing with me. She's just like, it's your body. The people who are successful come here once and done, and we never see them again. She says it's folks like you who are the ones that come back again and again and again and again. And there was another patient, we had like our own wing, of ostomy folks. And the patient who was staying in the room next to me was in for, I think, their 8th surgery. And they only had like, I think, 5 feet of bowel left.
Wow.
Because she didn't want a bag. So she would go through anything, all of these traumas and all of these surgeries and having all of her intestines cut out because she wanted the internal ostomy.
She didn't want to look on the outside abnormal. Yeah. And it's enough of a struggle when you're going through things on the inside of your body. It's enough of a struggle than you're trying to say, I at least want to honor the outside. So now you have a surgery, you're in an ostomy.
Yeah.
How has life been for you since then?
Amazing.
Right? This is why I call this podcast The Beautiful Bag, because you go through this whole thing and then at the end of the day, you're like, this is so bad.
It isn't so bad. I mean, honestly, colons are overrated. That's what I tell people. I'm just like, I live in New Mexico. It's the green chili. Well, it's the chili capital of the world. I know Colorado thinks they've got some, but it's not like ours. And, I like really hot, spicy food, and it's only burns for me once. It burns for all you other folks with colons, twice, maybe a couple times. And it's, I'm able to work out. I feel good. I can eat whatever I want and not have to worry about, if I eat this, what's in it that's gonna like cause me to have a flare up. I don't have to worry about, I knew where all the toilets were in the world. I go to a new city, I have to know where all the toilets are. I'm keeping my eyes on 7-Elevens and, stores that could potentially have a bathroom if I needed it. And it's like there was such this layer, very thick layer that you don't even realize of stress, like running in the background of like, where's your exit strategy? How are you, how are you going to get out of this if you need to use the bathroom? And I usually had less than 30 seconds notice.
Wow.
Yeah. If I had to, it was just like, ugh. So I all of a sudden had freedom. And it was really poignant for me because I was on antibiotics for such a long period of time. I started experiencing, I guess, antibiotic poisoning. Like
too much.
I don't know
of it. Yep.
Yeah, I was getting, and the doctors didn't know if that's what it was. I went to a rheumatologist and they weren't sure. But I had like these really hard golf ball sized nodules that were showing up on my legs, spontaneous bruising. Like my feet were so swollen, I could only wear Crocs.
Wow.
Like, and I could barely stuff them into Crocs. Like, I mean, I was a hot mess. I was walking with a cane because my knees were like, my hips were so just destroyed from being in such chronic inflammation.
And that's all still in your 20s?
Still in my 20s. I think I was 28. And when I had the surgery to have the external ostomy and got off the antibiotics, and I was still in the hospital healing up, I think 3 days, and the nodules on my legs were gone. The bruising was gone. Like I felt normal. It's like I didn't realize how sick I was until I could just let my body heal.
Wow. So that was what, like 2008?
That was 2004.
2004. Wow. Okay. So now you're 2004. It's 2021. Like you've had your ostomy for a while. Have you named it? Did you name your ostomy?
I named it Grace.
Grace. Okay. I love it. That's one of the biggest things that they always taught. They told me in the hospital, name it. So it's with you forever. So mine is Ivan. So But so you named it Grace. So talk about life with Grace for the last, I'm adding in my head, 17 years, 17 years. How awesome is that? So talk about it. Like, what can you do? What have you done? What can you do? Has it stopped you from doing anything? I mean, I think it's amazing that you felt better instantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think for a couple of years after that, I mean, I got married and did all of that business and then divorced, so, but I became a CrossFit coach. I became an aerial fitness instructor. I was a Ashtanga yoga teacher for a while. Like, it hasn't stopped me from doing anything physically. I was a rock climber for a long time. I mean, I can do anything that everybody else can
And
do.
you can probably do more now than you could have done before. Because if you were trying to rock climb and all of a sudden you had pain or an attack or had to go to the bathroom, I mean, there's none of that, right? So you probably have a better experience in life because of it all.
Absolutely. I absolutely have a better experience of life. It's really amazing to me. And I think that once I got over, it took me a little while to come to terms with the body image stuff, but I think doing yoga actually really helped. Yoga meditation really helped with that. And just really being purposeful about learning how to love my body and really, appreciate what it can do for me and how amazing it is. And that took longer than I would have liked. I think it's like I got to like 80%. I was there 80%. And then there was another 20 that I think was still operating in the background, that I'm not sexy enough, I'm not pretty enough, I can't show anyone my bag. And that I feel like I really started healing more since social media and people showing their bags and people like realizing how many people out there, how many beautiful, sexy, amazing, smart people out there have ostomies that I never knew about.
Right. It has been such an eye-opening thing. It's, like for myself, I mean, going from fitness competitor to being in a bag and then, having those same feelings. I mean, I think that was my biggest thing when I did my own thing, like having that fight, like, don't put me in a bag because I don't want to, it's ugly, it smells, it's disgusting, it's gross, it's this, it's that. And, now I look at it like, I'm clean all the time. You know what I mean? Like, and I know you probably do the same thing. Like, I drink so much water. I'm in the bathroom all the time. Every time I'm in there, I'm clean. And I'm clean. You know what I mean? Like, I'm emptying the bag. I'm taking care of all my stuff, so that I'm not sitting in it all day long. But then there's the times where, and you probably know this too, like you're in a car and you're stuck. And I say this story all the time. It's like, you're stuck in traffic and the person next to you, they had their cup of coffee and all of a sudden it's kicking in and they're squeezing their cheeks and you're just sitting next to them being like, I'm fine. I'm fine over here. Kind of like you said with the hot, here's, I like hot food. You're only feeling that burn in your throat once up your nose.
Yeah. It's true. And I've had the flu a couple times, over the past 17 years, but for me, my experience of the flu is now so completely different because I don't get those urgent gut cramps or anything. It's like my bag just fills up more quickly and I might feel a little under the weather. And so I have to empty my bag more frequently, but, and hang out on the couch. But I don't have that gut wrenching. And a lot of that, it's associated with nausea too. You've got the gut cramps and that makes you nauseated. And so now when I'm sick, it feels like it's much less of an ordeal than folks with colons.
Right. What's the line? No colon, still rolling.
No colon, still rolling.
No colon, still rolling. So body image. So you've kind of come to terms with that. And you said meditation, yoga, what else has happened? And seeing other people, love their bodies, even in ostomies on social media. Those are the things that have truly helped you. Anything else that you can share with the audience about, what they can do for themselves to get over that part?
You know, and this was a little late in the game, but it happened late in the game because it's when I got divorced. My husband, he was my boyfriend at the time, but when I decided to have the ostomy, the external ostomy, he was behind me 100%, just whatever I needed to be healthy is what he wanted. And so the entire time that I had my ostomy and was going through a lot of body issues, I was with him. And then when we split up, I had all, that 20% is what kind of came up to the surface. It's like, no one's going to want to date you. And, who's going to want to date someone with a bag and all of that. And I joined a sex, love, and relationship coaching program, not necessarily with the intention of learning how to coach individuals, but more to go and do a deep dive into my own subconscious and my own feelings of worthiness and deserving and self-love. And it was really amazing because it was a very intense program that I did that was a little over a year. And they did a lot of breath work, a lot of like somatic, breath work. So you go into your body and you feel the, where do you feel discomfort, and really learning how to breathe through the discomfort. And that was very profound for me because I felt there were certain meditations and certain breathing techniques that I ended up doing that it's like I felt so much grief and so much rage at like my body having betrayed me, and at it's like, why me? And just all of this anger and all of this rage and all this grief and this sorrow that I don't feel like I really ever let myself grieve that loss of my life. And so that poured out of me, and that was an amazing experience, truly. And I feel like after that, like, I all of a sudden had a connection to my pelvis and my guts again. It was like, I felt like I was walking around for 15 years with floating pelvis syndrome is what I called it, because I never knew where my pelvis was in space. Whenever I was in yoga, I was just like, I don't know, where is it? And this numbness that I had, and I was very disconnected from that part of my body. And so after going through that, all of this, I felt reconnected, and that really empowered me, I think, that is what really, I think, brought on this, not just love for my body, because sometimes I feel like self-love as a term is a little overused, that it loses its potency. But it's like my self-love, for lack of a better word, it became like an adoration of, and like such a deep respect and caring for my own body and my own physicality that surpasses anything that I could, use the term self-love to explain.
Right. Wow. That must have been an awesome feeling when you finally got there.
It was. Yeah. I think about it and I get a little, get a little teary. I'm like,
I can see. It's just, it must be an awesome feeling. And girl, it's, been through a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot, and it's not so easy. So, dating life, all that stuff. I mean, how's it gone? People date you with your bag, don't they?
They do. And, some people say, everyone has their own view on how you should or shouldn't do it. But I always just made it very apparent. I was just like, I have an ostomy. If that's not your gig, keep swiping, And all of the men that I dated since being divorced, like, they absolutely don't care, like, not even a little bit. And I think that one of the men, we're not dating anymore, but we're still friends, made a joke that he said, what was it? He says, we're just so excited to be that close to a vagina that we don't even care that there's a bag there. Like, we're just so excited that you're willing to take your clothes off. And So anytime I felt shy, I just kind of remembered that little nugget. I'm like, oh, they're just so excited to have that my clothes are off. They don't care that I have a bag.
They don't even know it's there. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, I love
And,
that.
so I'm in a long-term relationship now. I've been with my person for almost 3 years. And oddly enough, his mom had an ostomy. And she died when he was quite young, though. She had ulcerative colitis, biliary. It's a trifold thing that tends to happen in threes, and so autoimmune, hepatitis, and then there's a third one that has to do, I think, with the gallbladder, and so combination of those three things, and she didn't end up living a very long life, which is very sad. But
that's sad. That is sad. I mean, we have one life. It's why we're here, right? So why not live it and love it and enjoy it? And, you know, you have found freedom with having an ostomy where you were stuck in suffering prior to, and it took a while, right? So, you know, so if there's one thing that you would love to leave our listeners with, what would that be? I would love to see people who have to have ostomies view it as not I have to have an ostomy, but I get to have an ostomy. Mm-hmm. You know, it really is a second chance at life, and treat it like a beautiful accessory. You know, it's like a cool pair of shades, you know, or a nice hat. You know, it's just this beautiful thing that you get to wear outside of your body. It's an amazing extension of who you are. Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, Joy, you have been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I know that people are definitely going to be inspired by hearing it. So thank you for joining us this week. My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me be on your podcast. No, you're so welcome, sweetheart. Thank you so much for joining us this week. If you enjoyed this podcast, get the behind the scenes at LeeAnneHayden.com/ostomy updates. And also, if you found this episode encouraging, please screenshot it and share it on Instagram. And don't forget to tag me and also the person who was on the episode with me. I occasionally will do special gifts for anyone who does do a screenshot and share it on Instagram or in your stories. Also, lastly, please go to Apple or Google, rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast to keep up with them every single week. I enjoy you guys. Thank you so much for being here.